Hey everyone, Harry here to talk about Steve Bannon's effort to delay his next criminal trial until January, and a date not chosen accidentally. That coincides obviously with the arrival of, from his point of view, the new sheriff in town. All right, let's just review Bannon's charges here. So he was also charged, of course, with contempt and served some time, but was pardoned for that by Trump on Trump's last day in office. So that crime is now complete. This is about fraud charges that the New York DA have brought over his We Build the Wall scam, as it's charged. So he advertised that they were going to build a wall on the U.S. southern border, and 100% of all donations would go toward building that wall. Leave aside all the legal points about how that was going to happen and what the government's role would be. But he collects about $15 million and tells donors he's going to give it all up 100%, and just the representation is expressed to the building. And guess what? He doesn't do that. He takes some money, and a foundation that's working on this takes some money that he has said since, well, that's just normal expenses. That's the way it works. And I think it does often work that way, but not when you assure donors that it won't. So in some ways, it's a pretty clean fraud case. You make a promise, people rely on that promise, you break that promise, or in fact, you don't intend to keep that promise when you make it. So that is the charges that are supposed to go to trial within a few weeks. Now, the DA at a hearing said there's a little bit of evidence that they are now going to add to the plate. And that was what prompted, theoretically, Bannon to jump up and down and say, well, I need more time to prepare for this. And the DA said, we're talking about something that won't at all increase the length of the trial. Mr. Bannon can easily absorb this. It shouldn't cause any sort of delay. And the judge seemed inclined to accept that submission, but he wants to really see the evidence and decide, and so he hasn't yet. But the I think really telling point is that while Bannon and his lawyers styled it as, hey, we need more time to just prepare for this evidence. That's a conventional thing that defendants, who are always trying to push things off, would say in a run-of-the-mill case. It's clear that he is really making the case to the judge, and in some ways to the country, that somehow, because Donald Trump has been elected president, the whole thing should stop. The brakes should be applied to the prosecution, and he definitely wants the prosecution not to go forward until Trump is in office. Now, again, this is a state prosecution. Trump cannot pardon him, but Trump can try, and may well try. Bannon seems to be very much in Trump's good graces and a sort of strategic lieutenant to the whole movement and administration that Trump is assembling. And therefore, it's telling that what he's saying is, when he exited court, Bannon disparaged different members of law enforcement, lumped them all together, federal, state, etc. And then he said this: the people rendered their verdict on this lawfare last Tuesday. The hunted are about to become the hunters. Okay, so that is a chilling promise, and one that would normally be empty. But in Bannon's case, it's backed by the likely efforts and support of the president-elect and soon to be the president, who I think has shown himself perfectly willing to distort the law, lie, disparage all the actors in an attempt to try to change the dynamic. Again, as with all these things, none of it has to do with the law and facts, but what he's trying to say is that the whole system, somehow every single charge against them was simply politically trumped up. He actually calls out Merrick Garland. He calls out Jack Smith. He calls out Attorney General Letitia James. These three prosecutors have one thing in common. They have nothing to do with his case. And Alvin Bragg, who's actually prosecuting him, he doesn't call out, but he's taking the stance, and we're going to see Trump do this too, of just the people somehow have decided. Now, the people have a lot of power to elect a president, but they don't have power to actually override the sovereign function of a state to impose criminal punishment or the judgment of a jury. So even if the people somehow had rendered judgment on Steve Bannon's crimes or Mark Meadows' crimes or Donald Trump's crimes, it would be legally irrelevant. But this is what you're going to see now, some way of packaging Trump's decisive win as a way to try to push back against and even make go away the various state prosecutions. Look to Arizona as well, where just today the judge was pushed into stepping down over accusations of anti-Trump bias. So you're going to see somehow this political fact be attempted to be exploited or leveraged for the legal fact that it, or the legal claims that it has really nothing to do with. So Steve Bannon, not on the ballot and not in voters' minds, a charge that has nothing to do with anything in the election and is straightforward fraud. But somehow he says, give me till January and let my boss do his magic, because the people have rendered a judgment that all of these things should go away. So that's a chilling kind of theme, but we're going to see it proliferate. And it's wrong both because it's irrelevant under the law, but also because it's, even if it were relevant on the law, it'd be meritless in the sense that these charges were, of course, all documented and brought as they should be based on the facts and the law. And you have a jury system and a judge there to police things and give remedies to a defendant if they weren't. But this is just an attempt to inject raw politics and the kind of Trump momentum to somehow undo the criminal charges against Bannon for something totally unrelated. Stay tuned. We're going to have more of these kinds of efforts because a lot of Trump allies still are under criminal charges around the country, in Georgia and Arizona and 3 or 4 states on the false electors. And that's somehow going to be the theme, to try to push the public position that, this was all decided already because of the election. So that's in some ways a sort of straight out assault on the rule of law, which says that these things would be decided by the facts and the law, not by a popular decision to elect Donald Trump that had nothing to do with it. Talk to you later. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.